Hello, it is Wednesday, August 18th, 2021. I'm Chris Remo, and welcome back to my New York Times Crossword Daily Solve. It's a Wednesday puzzle. We are midweek, and therefore maybe just shy of mid-difficulty. And before we get going, I would like to share some comments from yesterday's puzzle. Although in general, the most interesting thing I found in the comments to yesterday's puzzle, it really backs up the thing I've been pointing out often recently, which is that these crosswords differ so much by knowledge base, by day, by person, by mood, I would say even, because I obviously had some tricky spots with yesterday's puzzle, which is, to be totally frank, unusual for me for a Tuesday puzzle these days. And there were other people in the comments who had a similar experience. But then there were also people in the puzzles, in the comments yesterday, who actually did surprisingly well with yesterday's, I shouldn't say surprisingly, but did quite well and said it was one of the first puzzles they had solved. So, as always, you never know. You just never know. For instance, Grace Gibson says, "This was my first unassisted solve since starting to do the New York Times puzzles recently. I've been watching your videos for a bit, but finally decided to start solving myself, and I'm glad I did." Interesting to see which clues different people struggled with in the comments. I got Oberon and Phaedra pretty easily. We never actually returned to Phaedra. Got that with crosses. But Sosa tripped me up. I'm grateful you chime in with your thoughts on logic and clues and the conventions of the puzzle. It's very helpful. And that is a good point. A lot of it is conventions and patterns and things you recognize. So let's also address a few of the clues. Correct some of my mistakes. For instance, Sam Morris points out, of course, and I don't know why this didn't strike me at the time, but España isn't Italian for France. It's Spanish for Spain. If I said España was Italian for France, which I'm prepared to believe I did, that was obviously some kind of severe misfire going on. Anyway, he points out the clue that read neighbor of Francia is referring to Spanish for France, which is Francia. This is a rare moment where watching international football is finally paying off. He goes on to say, I tripped up on the India ink clue, which is definitely something I'm not familiar with. And other people asked about India ink as well, including someone asking whether it's an Americanism, which I didn't think it was. And I looked it up, and it's not. India ink, it's sometimes in British English, it's referred to as Indian ink, but it's marketed in the UK under both names, India ink and Indian ink. And India ink is it's a sort of a very, very dark black ink that's used in drawing and inking and many common purposes, and apparently medical uses as well. So it's not so much that it's an archaic or out-of-date term, it's just arguably sort of specialized language. Anyway, although I was familiar with it not being an artist of any sort, although obviously not familiar enough to not struggle a bit with that clue. So let's move on to today's puzzle, the Wednesday puzzle by Alina Abidi, edited, as always, by Will Shorts. Are we ready to get started? Yes, I say okay. So breaded and topped with tomato sauce and mozzarella for short. Boo, I'm guessing this is parm, which is a corruption of an Italian recipe called parmigiana, which is specifically an eggplant or aubergine recipe, but has turned into sort of a generalized modifier for anything. One down, dad, pop. Midsummer director Aster, this would be Ari Aster, who directed Midsummer and Hereditary, I think. Blank Fair, historical reenactment event for short. That would be Ren Fair for Renaissance Fair. Fly-by-night type. I'm not sure what that's getting at. Let's look at the cross here. Black and white item in a sleeve. Ah, very clever. So this is referring to a sleeve of Oreo cookies, Oreo biscuits is what that is. And fly-by-night type. Moth, perhaps? Would that be a moth? With 26 across, game that uses a blindfold. All right, well, we have this pin starting this off, and I do think it is pin as opposed to pine or the beginning of a longer word, because I think the game is pin the tail on the donkey. Often played at children's birthday parties and that sort of thing. So I wonder if this is a theme. We've got a long dual clue answer. I guess there's actually only one clue, but dual fill, you could say. Anyway, this does look like moth. A gardening tool appears to be a hoe. What an asterisk might suggest. I think based on these letters, it'll be C note, essentially. Or when something has an asterisk, you're indicating there's a note you should see to explain what has been marked. A centaur's foot would be a hoof. Why? What for? An asterisk? What for? Well, C note. VIP on base. Could be a military base. This could be Sarge or something like that. Let's put it in and see if it works. Why not? Fuel up in a way. It could be eat. Visual in an annual report. This would be a graph, plotting profits and losses on a graph or something like that. Nimble, agile. You have to be agile in the crossword and always be prepared to think of a different sense of the word than the first one that comes to you. Holy mackerel, egad. Egad is a funny archaic, I guess, bit of what would now not be considered profanity, but I think derives from profanity. It's ye gods, maybe it comes from, it comes from some sort of oath. All right, hornswoggle would be to delude somebody. I was utterly hornswoggled and deluded by that India ink clue yesterday. Nice. Fruit in the William Carlos Williams poem, This Is Just to Say. This would be a plum. This poem begins, I've eaten the plums that were in the icebox that you were saving, or something like that. And it's a poem that has been widely adapted and reconfigured into various memed forms on the internet. All right. 21 down. Transform. Looks like morph, doesn't it? Let's go back up to the top. Sometimes when we get too far down this chain of clues, I like to reset and go back up a bit. Instrument played by indie rock's Sufjan Stevens. Oh, interesting. I don't know. I've heard a couple Sufjan Stevens songs, but I don't know him very well, and I'm not sure what this is. Winter bugs. Could be flus. Not looking forward to the upcoming flu season on top of everything, gotta tell you. Part of the food pyramid. Fats, I suppose it could be. Let's see. Toggle option. Yeah, fats would work because this toggle could be off. You toggle between on or off, for instance. So let's put fats in there and then look at the crosses. Let's check those crosses. Guest blank, what the New York Times calls op-eds. It looks like guest essays, doesn't it? Does Sufjan Stevens play the oboe, perhaps? That would fit. Artist's starting place. Blank page, and that could be, or no, maybe not. Blank canvas, yes, okay. And get-go, outset, right from the outset. We have been filling in these clues. Puts up, erects as in a building. Bird that had no natural predators until humans arrived. That's interesting. I'll be curious to see what that is. Repeated string in a chain letter subject line. I think this might be getting at FWs, in other words, forwards. The abbreviation for forward, when you forward an email, it says FW, and because it says repeated string, it might be saying to pluralize that. Not 100% certain, but let's check the crosses. Black History Month would be February, so that I think essentially confirms it. Website with articles like 10 surprising ways to use mayonnaise around your home. I think this is eHow. I think eHow might also be the website that is surprisingly exhaustively illustrated. It's eHow, or it's one of these how-to websites that seems to commission sort of bespoke artwork for its articles, and often they're incredibly amusing because they'll be illustrating very, very straightforward things like how to open a refrigerator to get the mayonnaise or something like that, and they'll have a diagram of somebody doing that. Anyway, I think that's the website I'm thinking of. Let's keep going. Birds that had no natural predators. Oh, let's see. Oh, bird, not birds. I'm actually not sure what that is. Let's keep going. Data structure with a root node. Well, presumably a tree, right? A tree has roots. So a data tree presumably has a root node. Undo. It could be negate. Babe Zaharias was the first woman to compete on its tour in brief. Well, PGA, in the US, that's, I want to say, the Professional Golfers Association or something much like that. Okay, let's go back up here. Tick off. Tee off is what that is. A tiny toy maker. I suppose this is one of Santa's elves. Organization that oversees OTCs. So OTC in this context, I believe, stands for over-the-counter, which is medication you can purchase without a prescription. And so presumably the organization that oversees that in the United States anyway is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. Item exchanged in a so-called Yankee swap. I don't think I'm familiar with the term Yankee swap. Let's keep looking for the time being. John Lewis was born here. Presumably this is John Lewis, the late U.S. political figure, and I assume he was born in a southern state, but I'm not sure which one. A campaign expense would be a TV ad, I would think. Latin gods. Deo? Let's see. Hit the slopes, ski. Dei. Okay. Hit the slopes is to ski. Something to do is a task. My daily task is creating these videos now. Pacify. To pacify is to appease. Oh, I see. A so-called Yankee swap. I've never heard this phrase in this way, but this must be a white elephant exchange when people all sign up and then draw a name at random of one of the other participants and then give that fellow participant some kind of gift, usually of small value and often something funny. Okay, fruits whose seeds can act as a substitute for black peppercorns. Interesting. Could this be papayas? Probably, but let's keep going. Cheese used in Baby Bells. That would be Edam cheese. Edam often clued in crosswords as a cheese with the red wax or something like that. That comes up pretty frequently, I would say. Tucker, who had her first hit in 1972 and won her first Grammys in 2020. Interesting. I don't know. I'll be curious to see the answer to that. Half of a half bathroom. A toilet? What does that mean? Half of a half bathroom. That's probably very obvious, and I'm just not seeing it. Oh, sorry. This forwards is wrong. This is this clue would have been easier if I didn't make that mistake. This isn't for words. It's forward, and I should have gotten that immediately, because when this says repeated string in a chain letter subject line, I thought maybe because it was saying repeated string, it was referring to plural, but really it's just saying the answer is itself a string of letters that is then repeated. So FWD for forward is repeated in the subject of a chain letter because it gets repeatedly forward. And anyway, the bird that had no natural predators was the dodo. So probably could have guessed that one. Anyway, things best kept under one's hat. Bad hair days? I mean, it does look like that fits, doesn't it? Yeah. I've had plenty of bad hair days during this whole strange period in which we're living, during which time I have been exclusively cutting my own hair. I'm not great at it, but I'm better than I was 18 months ago. Okay, John Lewis was born here, must be Alabama, which would have been my guess, but I wasn't confident, so I didn't put it in, because it was essentially a guess. To get situated, I'm not sure yet. Oh, here we go. So we do have a theme. Frequent reveler, or a hint to 16, 26, and 36 across. I see. So it's not a very extensive theme, because it really only has, it appears to only have two theme answers in addition to the sort of central theme answer. It has two components, because pin the tail on the donkey is really one clue, and white elephant is another, and they're both animals, and they're both, these games, I suppose, are both played at parties. So these are party animals. So, I mean, it works well. It's nicely constructed, but not very extensive. That's okay. It's a Wednesday puzzle. It doesn't need to be Too outrageous. Tucker, who had her first hit in 1972. It looks like Tanya Tucker, which is not a name with which I'm personally familiar, but that's not probably a surprise to those of you who have been following this series for a while now. Fruits you see, it looks like papayas, right? Let's put that in. Shared one's views. So this is a probably maybe arguably slightly archaic way to discuss this, but opined. If you opine, you share an opinion. Literally, it's the same root. I see. To get situated is to orient oneself. For all ages, as a video game, it would be rated. What is that? G? I think I would know this, but it's rated A. It's rated A for all, or E. No, E. Sorry. I got it. It's rated E for everyone, is what this is, and its underside might be covered in gum, a desk. A shaming syllable would be tisk, as in tisk, and let's check the crosses just to see. Tidy is so this could be a verb or an adjective. Tidy and neat. Brand in the ice cream aisle, what we see with tisk, it's Edie's. Lots, it could be a ton. That would work. Let's look here. Tell, yes. So this is tattle, as in to tell on somebody, to report them for a crime, usually a pretty minor crime. Although I suppose not. I guess I think of tattle as being used in a schoolyard setting more than in a sort of criminal informant setting, but perhaps it could be used in either. At all in dialect. So I think what this is getting at is something like know-how. It says in dialect, so what it's getting at is sort of regional speech, maybe, well, idiosyncratic or colloquial speech, often regional. Anyway, this isn't working at all. This isn't working know-how. What that would be. The first cloned mammals, they were ewes, I believe. Was it Dolly the sheep in Scotland, I want to say? Drug dosages. Could be cc's or mLs for milliliters, probably cc's. Oh, here we go. Cartoonist suggested by this puzzle's theme. So we do have one more element to the clue here. I'm not sure what that's getting at, though. I'm not sure who this is. If you see that, well done immediately. Hearty laugh. I think a hearty laugh is a yuck. Yuck it up, one might say, begrudgingly. Also, plus. So we've got plus and plum in this grid. Combined could be in one. You combine them into one. It's slightly awkward, maybe. Aches for, longs for is what this would be, or yens for, as we saw yesterday or the day before, I think. The day before, I believe. Drug dosages. Mgs for milligrams, as opposed, yeah, that's what that is, as opposed to milliliters. Thomas, cartoonist suggested by this puzzle's theme. Actually, I do think I know what this is. I think it's Thomas Nast, who was I want to say, early 20th century American cartoonist who did sort of allegorical cartoons, I guess often including animals. Let's put it in, see if check the crosses. Let's live on the edge. YOLO, as a recent crossword answer had it. A pretzel basically is a knot. Light bulb moment sound would be aha. Show with the recurring character target lady in brief. I don't recognize the lady in question, but I assume this to be SNL, Saturday Night Live. Piggy. A toe, as in the nursery rhyme, this little piggy went to market, etc. And let's check the crosses. Words after a gasp, oh no. And a yarn is a tale, a tall tale, a story, a bit of a fib. There we go. I guess a yarn doesn't have to be a fib. A yarn can just be a long discursive story, I suppose. It doesn't have to have a dishonest element to it. Sorry about that. Anyway, there's the Wednesday puzzle. A good, clean puzzle. I mean, I certainly had less trouble with that than yesterday's. I mean, honestly, this might have been the smoothest solve of the week yet, for me anyway, arguably more so than Monday. I don't recall necessarily, but I would be curious to know how this puzzle struck you. Thomas Nast, I wouldn't expect to be common knowledge necessarily, but I think you could essentially get, if you got yuck or not, I think you could pretty much get, SNL might be tough if you're not from the US, but I think with everything going on here, you could probably get the crosses without much of that specific cultural knowledge, but I would be curious to know if you did find that to be the case. Yeah, it's just a nice, clean puzzle, really, I would say, with a good, solid theme. Theme didn't. It wasn't really the linchpin of the puzzle, but I think that's principally because there wasn't a huge amount of resistance, or at least in my solve, I didn't butt up against a huge amount of resistance. So the theme was something largely in retrospect, which we found earlier this week as well. And that's, again, I think that's as it probably as it should be pre-Thursday, when things start to get a bit trickier. So well done to Alina Abidi for this puzzle, and well done to you, I suppose, for watching it. Thank you so much for watching this video and this series more broadly. And if you do enjoy this series more broadly, then why not subscribe to it specifically so that you can see each video as it goes up every morning, and consider passing it along to a friend through Twitter, through Facebook. We've got that Facebook page now that you can like, and you can be notified through there, as opposed to wherever else if you so desire. And if you particularly enjoy this series, why not consider donating a couple of quid or a few bucks through my Ko-fi page, which is linked underneath each video in the description field. And there you can make a small donation in an amount of your choosing on a one-off or monthly recurring basis to help make this show sustainable. And thank you so much to everybody who has done so, particularly those who have chosen that recurring option. That means a lot to me, and I do very much appreciate it. So with that, thank you to everybody for watching, and I hope you join me again tomorrow for the Thursday puzzle, when we do perhaps kick into that trickier territory for the week. I hope to see you then. But until that point, have a great Wednesday. Take care.